Today on Locked On Canadiens, the boys are back in town, but one question, are there too many of them?
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canadiens. We want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. As you know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network, and we thank you all for that. And my name is Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick, and I'm joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Ian Boisvert. Ian, we've been waiting a long time to see our Habs. How are you feeling on this fine, I'm not even going to say Wednesday, I'm going to say Thursday Eve.
Yeah, great. It's been too long since we've seen these guys. You know, it's funny, like during the Olympics, I kept catching myself going, man, these games are really fun. I just want to see the Habs play again, though. Like,
Yeah.
I just like immediately was kind of, I just want to get back to that. These guys are playing so much, they're like the most fun hockey we've seen in years. I wanted to get back to this, and we're back.
And we are. And so we're going to talk about that. We have a weekly forecast for the two games of this week. And then later on, we're going to talk about the logjam at forward. There's just too many of them. What are the Habs going to do? Are they going to waive? Are they going to trade? And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about the trade deadline that's a week away, just in general, kind of try to predict what teams are going to be extremely unhinged and what teams are going to stand pat, and to see if there's any market for anything the Canadiens might want to do. So let's get right into that. The Montreal Canadiens return on Thursday night with two games. The first against the Islanders, the first time we've seen the Islanders this season.
Also this week.
Yeah, also this week. And personally, I feel like the Islanders should spot the Canadiens one because of the trades that happened at the draft on draft day. I think they got three good players out of that draft. Four, if you count Emil Heineman. Three.
Three with Emil Heineman. Yeah, I was like, did we send another asset?
We didn't send another one.
I'm
just taking credit for Matthew Schaefer now.
I think both of those teams got plenty in that deal.
Yes, it was a fantastic trade for both teams. It's just going to be really interesting because the Islanders are better than everyone expects to be, earlier than they expected them to be. So I think this is a game where, you know, I feel like there's going to be a little bit of sea legs on both sides. How do you expect this game to play out?
Well, if last year's Canadiens Islanders matchup is anything to build off of, expect overtime. Every game between those two went to overtime last year. A 4-3 shootout win by the Islanders in October, a 2-1 overtime win for the Canadiens in December, and a 4-3 overtime loss to the Islanders in late March of 2025. So that was as the Canadiens were making their playoff push. I'm really excited. I think that the Islanders are, like you said, they're better, faster than a lot of people expected. But I think we have to remember too, like when they won the lottery and picked first overall last year, they had the 10th best odds going into it. They moved up as far as you possibly can by winning a lottery pick. So they weren't a typical team that drafts first overall. It was a chaotic, draft lottery last year. That said, the Islanders come into this one 32, 21, and 5 for 69 nice points. They are third in the Metropolitan Division. And it's really just them and Pittsburgh that are in the division battling for those. I know that the Blue Jackets are on the outside looking in and they're looking to make their jump. The Capitals are probably in a similar spot. But I think if you're the Islanders, and probably what the Canadiens need to look out for, is they probably look at Pittsburgh and they go, Sidney Crosby's not going to play for 4 weeks.
They're smelling blood. We
have a chance to really secure home ice advantage in the playoffs. So I think like the Islanders are going to take a look at that and go, we need to start on the right foot. Mm-hmm. The Canadiens cannot afford to be caught on the back foot going into the home stretch. They were very good coming out of the Four Nations break last year. I expect no different for them, especially because like this year too, they came into the Olympic break playing some of their best hockey. That they were like 4-0-1 in the final 5 games. And Marty said, I'm proud to coach this team before they embarked. So very excited for this one. There's a lot of intrigue going into it.
And it's a home game, which is really, really cool. We'd like to see, how the Canadiens fans welcome back their team. We got to see the 4 Montreal Canadiens in the Olympics. We got to see some of the best players in the world, but we didn't get to see our team. We didn't get to see our guys. There was no Lane Hudson to watch. There was no Cole Caulfield to watch. There was no Ivan Demidov to watch. So for me personally, like I'm just excited to see all of them together again, and to see what they cook up. And then after the Islanders game on Saturday, the Saturday night game is against the Washington Capitals. And they have seen the Washington Capitals this season. It's not like it's the first encounter since the playoffs. But I'm curious because Washington seems to be a team that's really struggling right now. And I think that, with Sidney Crosby being out, maybe they also see a possibility to surge right after the break and see. However, I wouldn't count Pittsburgh out. And I don't know what to expect from this Caps team other than it's going to be a really difficult game for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, so the Montreal and Washington have played twice this year. I believe one was an 8-4 loss, probably one of their uglier losses of the season. And then an overtime or a shootout loss. I think it was an overtime loss later on in the year. The Capitals continue to be a sort of boogeyman for the Canadiens. They were in the season last season before they met in the playoffs. There were the 3 times that they played them were all times that the Canadiens kind of handed defeat to themselves. One of them gave us the Marty quote, "We threw up all over ourselves." Right? Like that was a Washington Capitals game. And every time we watch Montreal play this team, I don't think we have seen them grow out of that. It's a team that they're pretty familiar with to this point. They played 3 times last year, then 5 times in the playoffs, and now 3 times now. Like they've played each other in the last calendar year a whole bunch. I want to see a mature effort from them in that game. I want to see them doing the things that you have to do to beat a playoff team. It's, staying above the puck on their forecheck. Yes, you should be going in and applying pressure, but you can't get overzealous and end up, getting burned by Ethan Frank for the 800th time. Why is it always Ethan Frank? I don't understand. Does anybody else have this problem with Ethan Frank? Is it just Montreal? I don't really understand. I want to see them do all the stuff that not the youngest team in the league does. Right? I think that's been the difference between them and the Capitals since, this, I don't want to say rivalry, but I guess increased volume of matchups has started to take place.
Yeah. I just, you know what? I never get tired of hearing the youngest team in the league thing though, because I just look at every time I hear that, I hear youngest team in the league, and then I look at how good they are now.
Yeah.
Right? It's just imagine them with more experience and maturity, like just how incredible they're going to be. If you missed yesterday's episode, you should check it out. Tony Ferrari was on, and he said that, for his money in the Atlantic Division, the Montreal Canadiens are one of the best teams, if not the best. So, that's definitely an episode worth checking out. Also, there was a lot of other stuff that we talked about, but for me, that one was that was when my heart grew 3 sizes. All right. 2 games this week. What is an acceptable record after this week? I'm saying 3 out of 4 points. I'm saying less than that is not acceptable to me.
Yeah, it's tough with just 2 games in the week.
Yeah.
Going 500 would be a bummer, right? Yeah. Like just winning one and losing the other in regulation would be a bummer. Yeah. I also want 3 out of 4. I think also some of these players have to look at this Saturday against Washington as potentially the last time they play at home as a Montreal Canadien. It's their last home game before the trade deadline. Now, I'm not saying the Canadiens are going to clean house, but everyone knows that the players are very uneasy around this time of the year. It wouldn't surprise me if that crept in for some of these guys, that they're starting to wonder where they're going to be playing in a week. We're going to talk about the trade deadline later, but I do want to mention that's a storyline in the role, how this week plays out.
Yes. The big news from practice was Alex Newhook was coming back, but we'll get into that in our next segment. I just want to ask you, Ian, like if there's one player that you think is going to have a big two games, who do you think it's going to be?
Lane Hudson has been so bored. He's been so bored. He's gone stir crazy in the 2 games. 5 points from Lane Hudson. It would not surprise me if he just completely explodes over the next 2 games.
Yeah. I think Slafkovsky and Demidov are going to be so excited to see each other again that we're going to see some good games. Like I'm just thinking like Slafkovsky in the Olympics being like, I wish I had Demidov here right now, right?
Yeah.
Now he's going to have Demidov. So I feel like that duo is going to have a big couple of games. And if there's one thing that they need to worry about, what is it?
I don't know if it's worry about, but get the penalty kill rolling. Like I don't treat this as like a new season starting. Yeah. Not totally, but leave the penalty kill woes behind you. Come into this week and really get off on the right foot on that penalty kill. I think it'll set them up for success the rest of the way.
Yes. All right. Up next, we are going to be talking, as I mentioned, Alex Newhook is coming back into the lineup, but the Habs have way too many forwards. We need to talk about this because it is a problem that may need to be solved soon. And that's coming up in just one moment here on Locked On Canadiens. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick net you cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. The trade deadline is here. Join the Everydayer Club for ad-free audio, access to our group chat on Discord, and more. Use code DEADLINE ahead of the trade deadline for 1 month free. Join now at Supercast at lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com or hit the link in the show notes. All right, Alex Newhook is back. This makes the team a lot faster, but this also causes problems because where do you put him? Who do you move? How do you not disrupt your entire team's chemistry? I think if the practice lines are anything to go by, they're putting Doc on the top line with Caulfield and Suzuki, and then they're putting Newhook in that second line.
Third line. So it's Caulfield, Suzuki, Doc leads us off. Slafkovsky, Kapanen, Demidov. The kid line is still together. Intact. And then Texier, Evans, and Newhook. And then, of course, Gallagher, Dino, Anderson. I think you can chisel that fourth line in stone for the rest of the time that all of those guys are on this team. That third line is interesting to me. I know we'll talk about like kind of what the logjam looks like in a minute, but I want to key in on this line because obviously Newhook's back. I don't think we can expect him to be at full speed immediately. I don't know that that's true. However, I will say the last time he was out with an ankle injury for a long time, he came back and was seemingly faster than when he left.
Yeah, I remember.
It was wild. Like his first season, he came in and it was sort of like, don't really know what this player is. He hurts his ankle. He comes back, and I just remember thinking, this is the fastest player that's ever worn that jersey. Like it's really funny. I kind of like this because I like the idea of Newhook using his speed to skate in and back defenders up, dropping the puck back to Texier and letting him work east-west to find options to score. Yeah, I kind of like those two things working in concert with one another.
Yeah, I agree. I think I just mixed up the practice notes from the Wednesday practice with the Tuesday practice when Slafkovsky wasn't there and Newhook was there on the second line, and I got just like super confused.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're not going to mess with that kid line right now. It's firing on all cylinders. You don't break it up. And also you do want to give him a little bit of an on-ramp. I think it's really interesting because I feel like on this team, at least, Texier has kind of become what you need him to become. And Newhook has also done that. Like Newhook was put in a tough spot, especially his first couple years on the team, like being given assignments that maybe shouldn't have been his, but he did what was asked of him. And so for me, like the question is not, is he going to do what Marty asks, but is it going to be what the team needs?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think Newhook is his role is going to change a little bit from when he left.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like at this point that he's going to be on the penalty kill. We've got Evans and Deneau as the first unit and Kapanen and Anderson as the second unit. We'll see how those work out. But Newhook will be on the power play. He's on the second unit with Gallagher, Doc, Texier, and Dobson, which I guess leads us to the extra forwards.
Yes.
There's 3 extra forwards, which is, as you noted, it's too many. That's a lot to have. They have 5 lines at practice. That's too many to have. Valeno is skating as an extra. Line skated as an extra. He skated as a defenseman at practice on Tuesday.
Yeah, that was funny.
That's very funny. It's not happening. And then Zachary Bolduc will be scratched against the Islanders. I think this is his first healthy scratch of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting, but not all that surprising because I think the guys that are playing give you more.
I think that's it. And it's unfortunate because before the break, he was playing his best hockey as a Montreal Canadien.
He was finding it, right? He was finding his role. They simplified it. They took him off that top line and said, just play in a bottom 6 role. You'll be fine. And he was, right?
Yeah.
He was moving the puck. He was making good decisions. I forget what game it was. Was it the Avs game? I can't fully remember, but there was a play where, he ended up getting an assist on a Deneau deflection. But what I found interesting about that play from Bolduc is before he had the puck, he knew what he was going to do with it, which is not what you were able to say when he was playing higher in the lineup. He was constantly second guessing what he was doing.
Yeah, I wonder if it was against Buffalo. Like, I feel like he had a really strong game against Buffalo, but it could have been the Avs game too, right? Everybody scored in that one.
It was a month ago. Yeah. Like, it's wild to think, but it was like all these. Then. Yeah, it's so long ago, man. I'm curious to see, and we'll talk about the trade deadline next.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like they can't have Bolduc not playing forever.
Correct.
I feel like he cannot be an extra forward on this roster. I feel like that's not the point of getting Zach Bolduc.
I also feel like they're not going to trade him right now. I don't think he gets traded this deadline. I think that this is a situation where they figure out what to do with Valeno and Line, which I don't know what it is, but then they start rotating Zach Bolduc in and out of the lineup depending on who needs to get rested before the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I don't think they waive Valeno. Like, Valeno's really valuable to them.
Yeah.
I know it's crazy because just thinking of how far we've come with this player, right? It was, I don't know what this guy does, to really effective bottom 6 center. He's not gonna add a lot of offense, but that's not why he's here. There's, of the guys that are scratched, Bolduc, Valeno, and Line, Bolduc and Line, you could argue, offer a little bit of the same thing. Secondary scoring, secondary offense. Neither of them can do what Joe Valeno does. So like, I am very hesitant to move on from that player. Like, I don't know how this nets out. We know Line is on his way out.
Yeah.
Right. We know that they're working on that if they can manage to find it. But that doesn't get Bolduc back into the lineup. You're removing already a scratched player. You're not finding any more space that way.
Yeah. Okay, but let's look at the collective age of the 4th line, right? Or even the individual or average age of the 4th line. Like, those guys are going to need rest the closer we get to the home stretch, particularly if they're banking points and it looks like they're getting close to making the playoffs. I think those are the guys, like, you are you saying you don't want a fresh Brendan Gallagher for the playoffs, right? Are you saying you don't want a fresh Philippe Danault? Are you saying you don't want a fresh Josh Anderson, right?
Do we know that they'll do that, though? Do we know that they'll... I don't think they're scratching Brendan Gallagher. If Brendan Gallagher plays every game this year and next year, he hits 1,000 games as a Montreal Canadien.
I know.
And I don't think he hits that just due to his injury history, but I don't think the Canadiens voluntarily take that away from him, right? Like, I think that's a different conversation to have.
I agree with you, but at the same time, like, they're in the business of winning hockey games, right?
They are, but not at the expense right now of one of the most, consequential skaters on the Canadiens of the last 10 years, right? Like, I think we all forget like what Brendan Gallagher meant to this team for such a long time.
Yes.
Like, I think a lot of people look at this is going to make me sound like Mark Bergevin. A lot of people look at this like it's NHL on PlayStation. And like, I'll just hit X and swap them out. Like, that's it's a much harder, like you have to walk into Brendan Gallagher who wears a letter and say you're not playing tonight.
Yeah.
Like that's a really difficult conversation to have. And frankly, I don't think it's one the Canadiens need to have. Like I don't have the same level of urgency with this as others seem to.
I just think that like Bolduc gives them the option to do it.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, they have the option.
Yeah.
I think they would have to be like Brendan Gallagher would have to come out after this break and look like a completely non-functional hockey player for them to even consider it. And who knows, maybe this break was enough of a rest for him where he can go the rest of the year without needing one, right? Like he's been off for 2 weeks.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, but then like you what are you going to do? Are you going to rotate out Texier? Like what are you going to do?
I don't know. I think the Canadiens are wisely banking on the fact that this is a very violent sport and that somebody is going to need to come out for a legitimate injury purpose.
Yeah.
And that they don't need to make this choice. However, that's kind of what put them in this situation to begin with, right? They were always thinking, well, we're not going to get totally healthy all at the same time. And that's exactly what happened. So like maybe that's not a wise gambit from this front office. I don't know. Well, I mean, we're going to have an answer to this in less than a week.
Yeah. And speaking of that, the trade deadline is coming up. So we're going to talk about it just like in general, but also as it relates to the Habs. And that's coming up in just one moment here on Locked On Canadiens. This episode is also brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Before we get into the trade deadline, I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow is our mailbag. We will be covering the game. Hopefully it'll be a win. Hopefully we'll have tons of stuff to be excited about, but it is Friday, so please send your mailbag questions to us. Our preferred method is lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com, but you can also reach us on TikTok, on Instagram, and on Blue Sky at Locked On Canadiens. You can also leave questions in the YouTube comments as well. So please do that because tomorrow's Friday and we love hearing from you. We love all of your questions. Also, trivia is back today. I forgot to mention that. All right, let's get into the trade deadline. I think the first question is, what are the Habs going to do?
It seems like this is the first year where the Canadiens actually have a legitimate reason to be buyers, not huge buyers, right? I'm not talking about going and adding the biggest UFA they can find, but like they have every reason in the world to try to improve this hockey team. It's just a matter of whether or not they think the costs are prohibitive, and they might be. Like looking around the league, there aren't a lot of very, defined sellers just yet. And, enough of them are not particularly wise for the Canadiens, or, probably won't be great trade partners for the Canadiens. Like the Toronto Maple Leafs have come out and determined that they're going to be sellers. They're probably not making a deal with Kent Hughes and the Canadiens. No. So, it's a very weird deadline for the Canadiens. I will say going into it, and looking at the deal that was done between Pittsburgh and Colorado, where Brett Kulak, former Montreal Canadiens legend Brett Kulak, was traded to Colorado for Sam Girard. Yeah, he was already in Pittsburgh. Do you remember that at all? Because I don't. Until they were like Brett Kulak's being traded, I was like,
I thought he was in Edmonton.
I thought he still was. I forgot he went over there in the Skinner Tristan Jarry flop. But that deal freed up a lot of cap space for the Avs. Like they are going to save $5 million next year and about $2.5 million this year. So I wonder if going into this trade deadline, even with the cap expanding, if the idea is still that cap space is king. Cap space is still going to be more valuable than most things in this league.
I think this year for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody's kind of looked at this summer as like the time to make a splash, or the time to redo everything. I did want to mention something, and now, the Leafs. Speaking of the Leafs and the Habs making a deal, I was talking to a Leafs fan friend of mine. And I was like, "How much for Willie Nylander?" And he was like, "Ivan Demidov, Slafkovsky, Cult Coffee plus plus plus." And he's like, "But knowing Brad Treliving, he would make it happen for the ghost of Patrick Laine and maybe a 7th rounder in a few years." So I feel like maybe like it's not Kyle Dubas anymore. It's like it's somebody you can kind of finesse a little bit. Kent Hughes has to start calling though. I know we're not getting William Nylander. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it's unlikely that these two teams make a deal. It's unlikely the Habs make a deal with Boston too, but it has happened.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. I get that. I would be really shocked if a player of Nylander's caliber was actually moved at this deadline.
No,
like no. I think it's going to cost a ton. And I think there are a lot of teams this year that are somewhat good that don't really believe that they're somewhat good. Mm-hmm. And yet there's teams like the Kings who are like, we're in on Artemi Panarin and we're still looking to buy more. Like, and maybe they shouldn't. So it's very much like I find that this year, this where all the teams are, paired with the fact that we all had to pause for 2 weeks and we're not really sure what teams are trying to do coming out of the Olympic break. Like I find that this year is a very unpredictable trade deadline.
Yeah.
I will say just like, every year coming into this one, all the insiders, fake job, all the insiders are like, this is going to be one of the most chaotic trade deadlines of all time. And it's a wet fart. Like this year, they're not even saying that. Like no one's out there being like, this is going to be an explosive trade deadline. And they're not even trying to pump the air into those tires. Like I would not be surprised if not much happens.
I also would not be surprised if not much happens. But like you said, like this is the kind of, there's going to be teams like, let's say the Montreal Canadiens, they have a problem right now. They got to do something with Patrick Laine. A trade might be something that happens, right? They also got a problem in that they don't have a right shot D that they can trust on that bottom pairing. That might be something that they do. It's not a massive earth-shaking move. And so I feel like there's a lot of teams, given how many teams are on the bubble of the playoffs or kind of fighting each other for the same spot in the playoffs, I feel like a lot of teams are looking to do something like that. So it feels like it's going to be more of a musical chairs type deal.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's one of the big names that's out there is Elias Pettersson out of Vancouver. And people keep, there are insiders who keep trying to make us believe that it's possible that this happens. And maybe it does happen at the trade deadline, but like, that's a massive contract. That's not this gets moved at the trade deadline kind of contract. This is one that happens in the middle of the summer when people have, the 10% above the cap that they can go over by and figure things out. Like, I have a really tough time looking at just the landscape in this league and believing that something bonkers is going to happen. Again, maybe that's when all of the really weird stuff happens, is when none of us believe it. So, take of that what you will. But I think we're looking at another trade deadline for the Canadiens where they might tinker, they might poke around the edges, but they're not going to take a big swing unless they deem it to be like, this is the perfect guy that we needed to bring into our lineup right now.
Yeah. All right. It's time for trivia. So I just want to mention we lost 4 days of trivia questions. So all of the Black History Month questions that we were going to ask are going to go. So the first 4 questions in March are going to be Black History related as well. And today's question is, who is the first African-American player to play in the now defunct National Women's Hockey League, who later won an Isabel Cup? That is the trivia question. So first African-American player to play in the National Women's Hockey League, who later won an Isabel Cup. That's our trivia question. And if you have picked up the book that I told you to pick up, which is Black Aces by Julian McKenzie, you would know the answer to this question. I want to mention also, it is mailbag. So please send us your mailbag questions, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com, YouTube comments, also on our social media. And again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to Locked On Canadiens. Tomorrow's show is going to be a recap of the game against the Islanders, hopefully a win, plus our mailbag. So make sure you subscribe to and that you follow Locked On Canadiens so that you get all the latest episodes. You can find us on social media, Locked On Canadiens on Blue Sky, TikTok, and Instagram. And if you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked On Canadiens ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com to join the club. And for those of you who are on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make sure your second listen of the day is NHL Game Night, Locked On NHL. They cover every game that happened the night before. You get all of them in the morning. Plus, we get, sometimes you'll see us on there as well. We want to thank you all for listening, and we will see you all tomorrow after an actual Habs game.